All right, Ags, this is cut 7 from Student Bonfire 2020, the weekend of the 10th and the 11th. And we're going to be looking at stack site prep on the 10th and cut on the 11th. And as I get started here, I'm going to top off my whiskey sour because supposedly I guess I'm an artist and that's what I'm supposed to do. That's my excuse. So the fog was rolling in, very heavy on the morning of the 10th, and just jumped out of the truck as quickly as I could to try and get get dialed in on trying to capture this fog. This is perimeter. And here will be all these T-posts are marking off where different poles are going to be in the architecture of stack. So way out here, closest to us actually is a perimeter pole, and here's the window sticks are these 4, and center poles in the middle of them. It was just so cool out there this morning. I showed up earlier than earlier than I had expected to, and on these days the crews aren't showing up till later. They're not showing up at 8 o'clock like they are in the woods. So I had some time to tool around by myself and kind of check things out on my own terms. Usually I try not to uh, have any I try to avoid having me in any of the photos. So I try to when I can. When I'm able to take the time to prepare for it, I try to keep my shadow out of the deal. Um, I try to keep appendages out of the deal, but here clearly there's my feet down there. And I actually did this one on purpose because I wanted to kind of give a sense of some of the size of the work done here on what will be a light pole. So there had already been work done digging the light poles, the trenches. We had seen some of this started in the previous week. And a few of those photos were published in the Cut 6 collections. But here on this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, they wound up finishing them. Here there's a little bit more available light, so that I could already with the fog rolling in, there's already going to be some filtering, some layer that's introducing noise when you're taking the photo, and it can be it can be complicating when there's not enough light, and so you're trying to use a lower um, a higher film ISO or whatever it is to try and gather more light. And if you adjust your ISO too much, if you push it too far with that, then you're actually introducing noise on top of really hoping it wouldn't push off the fog, and in fact it didn't, so that was nice. And I was able to get that there was still so much fog there without having to introduce all that noise. Um, And here I dialed it way up. What it actually looked like was more like this. This was more the actual light at the time. So this is a green pot and two junior red pots. They're going to take a look at something going on at the light pole, and I liked them all, walking off together. Um, these moments where these groups of leaders are kind of in their element, alone before everything else is happening. I like to catch those. Um, Here we've got yellow pot running. The yellow pots were called, and he's in an awful hurry all by himself. This yellow pot, this is the Walton yellow pot. He appears to enjoy running uh, more than most. So all of his running to me always ends up looking uh, more interesting. I mean, this just look at this. He looks so happy. Just this right here. He just looks so happy. Uh, so anyway, I'm always interested in him running. Um, there's some other folks catching up with him, but they've been put to work on digging the holes, and again, it's still soupy. It stayed this way for a while. So this is one of the light poles, simple creosote pole with some framework there for the lights to be on. Pretty simple stuff. They are hiking the pole out just a little bit. I don't know. I thought one of those would be interesting. It's possible that I thought wrong. Um, Here they are taking a measurement on the hole, laying the axe handle across. Yet another useful uh, application of the axe handle. And you see here one of the participants, one of the looks like a dead chief, a chief from previous years in the, I believe, um, in the hole. So give you an idea of how deep that hole is already. Here's the yellow pot for OC in the hole. If you see here, this chunk of black here, that's actually one of the previous year's perimeter fires. So every year the whole architecture moves um, about 10 feet, uh, and so where they're digging a perimeter pole now, or not a light pole, where they're digging a light pole now, that's digging into where a perimeter fire used to be. Um, and so that's just some ash and coal and remnants from a previous year. Here's that Walton yellow in there working on the hole. And here I'm just trying to illustrate the it's not an insignificant hole. So among these, there's a few in there where he was throwing dirt, and uh, uh, you can clearly see what he was trying to do. So I'm gonna flag one and then come back and we'll find the right one. Now here's I believe this was Lechner's hole. Basically, some of the crews would work together on them. This was a hole Lechner was working on. Maybe they were working on it with a pelt. And here they are bringing in the light pole that would go in the hole. Lechner Chief calling it. Everything again. There's probably there's certainly easier ways to do things, but what would be the point of that? How much fun could that possibly be? So the holes are dug by hand. They're going to be. We're going to see here as we move forward. We're going to see that they fill it in by hand and they tamp the dirt back in by hand. Make sure that everything you do it in a way that provides the maximum amount of opportunity for um, motivation and effort and purpose. Here we see one of those poles at length. Here Lechner is, and confirmed here it was Lechner and the pelt working together on this hole. Here they are hiking it into place. As you hike, you get down over it. The person calling the hike will 1-2 hike, and you push the pole back, and then when you're up here on the front and it is out of your reach, then you break off and you run back to the back and take your place. It's sort of like a reverse leapfrog situation. And here are the Y sticks. Um, I liked this look of all the Y sticks coming together, getting ready uh, to set the poles. So these are the same Y sticks that they're going to use at stack once it's time to start stacking logs in that final phase of Bonfire. Uh, these are the exact same Y sticks, and we'll talk about this a little bit more once we get into stack. But when I was doing it, the Y sticks were actually they were actually wooden sticks. They were actual branches from trees, and you would go out into the woods, especially once you start getting closer to stack, with the purpose and intent of finding branches and small were in the shape of a Y to use for stack. And so it was some years after my time that they introduced these prefabricated welded metal Y sticks, which again, once we get into stack, we'll talk about that in more detail. But it was just a really genius maneuver and an evolution. Actually, there was some evolutions in the whole Y stick storyline there. But it was a good one, smart one, a smart move. One of those that the change is made, and you wonder what in the world were we thinking. Here we see a sort of a preview of stack and the Y sticks at stack and how those are going to work. Let's see. Let me check the stream here. We all caught up? All right. So here we are, the Y sticks moving in, and they're going to be what braces sort of thing is stacking. And here is the which one would this be? The northwest, the northwest corner light pole is going in. This the entire time it's going up, you have your junior red pot back here giving instructions for left, right, front, back. Everybody's already been assigned. You are front, you are back, you're left, you're right. So everybody is perfectly clear when he says left who he's talking to and right who he's talking to. And they get that pull in. Now, something that we'll see more clearly is that the hole is actually, it's not just a straight up and down hole. They actually kind of ramped down. This is sort of a ramp down into the hole. So that's where they're sort of leaning the pole into place, not just dropping it and having it fly up into the air. It's the junior red pot and the OC crew chief. This is, I believe, this is who we were looking down on earlier, who was in the hole. So it's a current crew chief that was in the hole. Green pot checking on that as well. And so we got the pole in. The Y sticks are working on it, guiding it, following the instructions of the junior red pot. Here's the junior red pot underneath, twisting it as it needs to be twisted. Make sure that, I mean, obviously it's a light pole and it's got that bracing up there. You want to make sure that it's pointing out to where it's supposed to be. Pointing at stack. Here they are tamping. So this is going to be the sort of thing that you see at center pole, which is planned currently for this week, where you put dirt in the hole and you tamp that dirt down with a big metal pole. And I was trying to catch him jumping on this pole. He was getting both feet off the ground and getting into it, and I just missed it. Tamping is intense work, be it for center pole or for these light poles. Tamping is not a walk in the park, man. That'll wear you out, and you tamp for a while, and then your junior red pot yells dirt, and everybody throws dirt in the hole for just a second or two, and then you stop throwing dirt, and follow up with water. So here's the junior red pot pouring some water in there. And so you pour water on top of that dirt that you just threw in the hole, and then you start mashing it in again. So when you're doing this for center pole, you could be looking at 8, 9, 10 hours to fill in the entire center pole hole in this manner. It takes a long time, and center pole is not just the center pole in the middle of the stack. It's also a short way of referring to the crew that earns the privilege of putting their flag on the top of center pole. So not only do they get to put their flag on the top of center pole, they get to be the ones to tamp it in. It's a truly a great honor to be a center pole crew, but not gonna lie, a few minutes into tamping, you begin to wonder if it was all worth it. So just sneaking the Aggie Bonfire trailer through the middle here. This was the Junior Red Pod doing as Junior Red Pods do, demonstrating his expectations as to um, intensity and speed for tamping. And we see it slowly starting to fill up. Um, More dirt being tossed in on it. I went over to visit tamping. You kind of get the idea pretty quickly what's going on. So I went over to visit the hole again in the southwest corner, and here's Walton helping to dig that hole. Um, Again, I generally try not to make anyone aware of where I am and what I'm doing. I don't want anybody to notice or change what they're doing or behave in a different way because they think a camera's there. Um, so I took a number of photos actually standing. I'm not leaning. I'm actually straddled across the hole here, shooting down into the hole, and did a pretty fair job uh, uh, staying secret until it looked like he was about to jump out of the hole straight up. And so, for obvious reasons, I did let him know that I was standing immediately over the top of him. But got a bunch of some good candid shots there. I was looking forward to looking at those, and I'm happy how those turned out. Obviously, too, illustrating that um, this is dirty work. It doesn't have to be, but then again, it absolutely has to be. Uh, Shooting back towards the crews tamping in that pole. I'm wondering if we're getting up on this one particularly motivating thing. I'm not sure that we're exactly there yet, but I think we're getting close. It was one of the more motivating things that I've seen out here. It was just incredibly good bull, but I don't think we're there yet. This bull, um, this bull was not having it this morning. The landowner here runs cattle on the property, and he generally he's got a good piece, and so he generally has the animals towards the bottom um, when Bonfire's out there doing work to keep these two groups separated, doing their own things without interrupting each other. But this bull came up here by himself, and he was just in a mood. And here you see the logs in front of him. Well, they had work that needed to go on behind him, and people were going to have to cross behind him. And so I was keeping my eyes on this situation, a bull that was not in a good mood, with nowhere to go in front of him, but people trying to get work done behind him. And after watching him for a while, it turns out looked like he had kind of a bum hip. So called the landowner, and they came out to have a look at him. But yeah, I hadn't seen that bull before in all these years, and yeah, he was ornery. Here they are moving some logs, helping to clear and sort the skids. Um, More work organizing these logs that have been unloaded at stack site. My understanding is that they're already at the number of logs that they had last year, um, and they've got dress log cut ahead of them. and that was before a bunch of the logs were cut this past weekend. So I think they're in a really, really good position, which given everything that has happened this year, um, obviously 2020 being the year that it is for everybody, I think that's really impressive what they were able to get done production-wise. Here they are. They've up this far on the poll already. Um, let's. This is going to cut away for a second as I look at the. See if I can find the timestamps there. Oh, come on. All right. So let's see how long it takes to tamp. Tamp one hole. They started tamping at 8:25, and they are. Yeah. So this is pretty quick. An hour they made it up to this high. An hour and 8 minutes. So the difference between this and center pole is, of course, center pole hole is maybe twice as wide as this, and it is 3 to 4 times deeper than what they've dug here. So with this, they got up here in an hour. Center pole again, you're looking at making it this far being 6 to 8 times as long. I'll always get a few pictures of the start of tamping in center pole. Never gonna miss that. I always want to document that. Um, obviously for posterity, but also for everybody who earned that to be able to have those photos to remind them of the year that they earned center pole. Um, but I'm never ever. I have not yet ever stayed for the entirety of tamping in center pole. Here's Ace being old and friendly. And oh yeah, let me see. I hope I pulled this off in time. Um, the junior red pot was he had some things to say, and obviously it was entertaining to some people. But here he is yelling. Now there's a thing among junior red pots that they're not supposed to ever be found smiling or overtly exhibiting any emotion besides intensity or wrath, and that's just the expectation, and and it's kind of a fun way of doing things. But what's more fun is to try and break your junior red pot to see if you can get your junior red pot to smile, and they did make some attempts at making that happen. I feel like this year's junior red pots though enjoy an advantage, a little bit of cheating that others don't, in that they do have these masks, so it's much easier to break and smile behind the mask. Um, I think it's cheating. So, all right. So I looked up the road at a certain point, and as I mentioned that bull that was out in the field, and that was behaving in a strange way, and that after looking at it for a while, I felt like the bull might have had a problem or might have been injured, and so as I mentioned, I called the landowner to let them know that they had a bull that was acting funny. And it was shortly after that that I looked up and I saw a blinking light and a bicycle coming in the entrance to Stackside. And so I thought that maybe the landowner was just going to ride their bike out there and look at the bull. And so this is stupid. This is my fault. I shouldn't have been thinking about it. I should have just taken the picture, because if it's the landowner coming in and it's not interesting, whatever. Data is cheap. Um, Pixels are cheap. So just take the damn picture. And I didn't, and I was trying to figure out what it was, and that was a stupid, stupid move on my part. Because what it was one of the participants riding his bicycle into Stackside. Riding his freaking bicycle into Stack. And he rode his bike from campus. And this is going to be the best one I have of that. This is not even necessarily a great shot of that, but at least I have him framed between these two buildings. To participants, they'll recognize these two buildings as being sort of the first buildings of the quote stack complex. This is the Cookie Shack. You can see it barely legible here. This is Shirtle. So when I had my T-shirt company, this is where those operations were. I think this was used for a year or two, and now it's just there. But in any event, Shirtle, Cookie Shack, this young man who rode his bike from campus. That is motivation. That is the burning desire right there. So, outstanding, incredibly good bull, very, very motivating. As he pulled in and pulled his bike around behind the building, I was standing next to Lechner and Appelt. I saw the green pot from the distance there, and so I said, "Hey, do y'all have somebody on a bike?" And they were totally not expecting this at all. Completely not expecting to see him. So that was just really, really good bull. And the thing is he got off his bike and he immediately got to work. Here's me playing with the exposure, trying to get the sun directly over the top of the pole. I was just curious to see if I can make something of it. I'll look at the settings later and see if there is something in there. Again, this is if I expose this correctly and I provide enough light to this here, then the sky is completely washed out like this. See, you can't tell that the sun is here. It's just too. This exposure is close to what I would like it to be, but the sky's all overdone. So shoot it where the sky is the way you want it, and bring these elements back, bring the shadows out, and there we go. That's starting to be right. So in any event, that's the trick there. I wasn't able to do that so much when I was shooting with the D5000. I'm not, again, I've said it before, I'm not a real gearhead. It's, as my dad said when I asked him what kind of camera to get, um, he had, my little brother had called me before my first child was born and, and asked me what I wanted as a father, is kind of like a baby shower for a dad thing. And I said, oh, just nothing. But I'll tell you, brother to brother, I want to get a camera the way my dad did, or so I could take pictures the way my dad did. My dad being an actual, legitimate professional photographer, and uh, my brother, very intense guy. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I gotta go. And he gets off the phone, just jumps off, and then a few minutes later, my dad calls and says, "I'm gonna buy you the damn camera." And really excited. Finally, one of his sons is interested in what he's dedicated his entire life to, and and I was very excited about that, and really happy that I would be able to take photos with a camera that my child's grandfather had bought for that purpose. And I asked my dad what I should get, and he said it doesn't matter. Years, a lifetime committed to this discipline, and his answer to what kind of camera I should get was, it really doesn't matter. Um, get what you're comfortable with. So that's my way of saying that when I say stuff like my D5000 or whatever, it it doesn't matter. Except for when I had the sort of entry level DSLR, I wasn't able to bring back things that were underexposed the way I can with the D750. Again, a really great recommendation from Thomas Campbell that I'm always going to be grateful for. But the technology available in the D750 and the sensor, it does allow me to kind of do this trick. So in that sense, it does matter. But the thing is that there's those different levels, whatever you shoot with. If you're interested in shooting, if you're interested in taking photos and capturing things, just worry about whether you can figure out how to see it, and the hell with whatever kind of camera you want to get. It again, it doesn't matter. So anyway, soapbox. Let's go to Sunday, the 11th. Here's Walton doing work. This is Walton's little um, tribal ritual that I need to go back sometime and see when this first started to happen. But they play a little, it's a little hippity hop number, and do work, and they all walk around in a circle, and then at a certain point of the song, they all lean into each other and do work. Um, they are joined by Squadron 17, and again, we've talked in some previous load sessions about the importance of Squadron 17 to Walton and vice versa. So it's good to see some Squadron 17 guys there. Here's the brown pod getting his chainsaw ready for the day, having a load class for any newcomers. So there's the newcomers in this case are a couple Squadron 17 guys. And there in the background, there's the Walton guys working on the truck sticks. So I'm hoping that I got one of these to work. There's a few of them in a series here. Again, the old trick of using what's in the foreground to frame the background. And here we are, as we saw with the previous load class. No one is exempt from practicing. Push-ups at load site aren't punitive. They are practice. When you throw the log onto the truck, rock it back 1-2 on the truck. It should be synchronized. Everybody should do it together. If you can't figure out how to push that weight together at the same time, it's not safe. And so everybody does push-ups together in the morning to learn how to synchronize their pushing efforts. No one is exempt, including the red pots and the junior red pots. Here's a red pot and his son. Again, Walton started with a truck that had already had some logs, some basers on it already from a machine the day before. Simple tosser. There we go. You know what? It just occurs to me. This coming up week is going to be dressed log cut, which is the last cut of the season. And if this coming week is dressed log cut, then that means this might be one of the rare years that I didn't get up on the truck, which is it's okay this year because of Walton's protocol isolation at the beginning, and kind of the impacts that had on the rest of their season and how many days they were able to load. There weren't as many opportunities for anybody to be on a truck as there are in regular years. So if my not being on the truck means that somebody else got an opportunity to get on the truck, that's great. But then again, man, you just have not lived until somebody has thrown a tree at your face. I'm telling you, it's like a drug. It is the best damn thing in the world to be up there on that truck with your hands out, telling people, not asking, demanding that they throw a tree at your face. Oh, it's just a thrill. I love it. I love load so much. 17 has got some big guys this year. Some very big guys. I hope we'll be seeing more of them. And look, I want you to look at his shirt and put in your mind how clean this shirt is. Keep that fresh in your mind. And we'll see the evolution of this shirt. A few of those in there. Oh, 1 second. If you will indulge me, I'm going to see if I've got his number. So 17, Squadron 17 has got a number of members of the outfit that are the sons of former Bonfire participants, and in many cases not just former Bonfire participants but former Bonfire leadership. And so I am messaging, send a message here real quick. So pardon my distraction for a second, but I want to message one of the dads here, um, if he's still up, and don't want him to miss this. So uh, back to it. So Squadron 17, load. Oh yes, this is another one of uh, the coincidental. We have somewhere in this photo the um, uh, a young, motivated son of a former bonfire leader, and in keeping with that thread there, here we've got, and you can tell this is an old Dixie chicken hat. In the old way, um, used to be you'd get blue with yellow cord for yellow pots, and this was an Ashton for yellow pots or crew chiefs. Blue with yellow. What's that yellow crew chiefs? Anyway, this is an old uh, an old Aston um, chief from back in the day, and his son is now a member of Walton. So really motivating to have him and his wife, who was in Mosier. Uh, they built Bonfire together, and like you find so many times, uh, you have the lifelong uh, uh, brotherhood and sisterhood that is formed in participating in Bonfire, but you also end up having um, uh, inevitably you have future families who form at Bonfire, people who meet each other, who um, uh, and experience this thing together, and it becomes the an important start to really motivated families of Aggies, which is a really special thing. And so to see this, when I was doing this, um, when was oh my goodness, 17 years ago at this point. Um, when I was doing this, their son um, was younger than my youngest child, and so when we were starting Bonfire again, and we were uh, uh, I don't want to say bringing it back. It never went anywhere. But when we were starting to build Bonfire again, our thought was let's get this job done, and and like salmon swimming upstream, you you don't exactly know where you're going, but you do know that you're getting somewhere, and it's not until you get there that you realize where you've been, and so that's we put our nose down, and we got to the end, and all we could imagine in the farthest, most distant future was the end of the season and having Bonfire done and burning it, and bringing the great Aggie family together for that moment. Um, we didn't we didn't and couldn't have, even in our wildest dreams, imagined that what was going to happen that year um, was going to be families being able to come back together around this experience, and that's exactly what I told um, uh, the young man's mother who was there, um, his wife, that it's amazing and incredibly motivating to see these families be able to come back out, and if we're being honest, families that for a time thought that their their young Aggies would never ever get to experience what it was that brought them together. And in some cases, the experience that where their family started was working together on Bonfire, and the how close that came to to not being available anymore, and then here it is, and in those generations they know that their kids can do it, and in cases like this, here they can build it with their kids. Um, just man, so outstanding. So there we go, 17 and um, Walton together on a log there. Again, um, here we go, another good tosser onto the truck. Pardon me. Um, this day was Old Man Load. So Old Man Load is a tradition in Walton of old Walton guys coming back to do load again and share good bull stories and tell the kinds of stories that I think one young Aggie put it best. I think he was a freshman or a sophomore this year who, in the middle of telling old Army stories, one of them said, "The more I hear the stories, um, the more I'm convinced that old Army is the reason why new Army doesn't get to have any fun." which is probably a pretty accurate way of putting it. Um, anyway, so it was Old Man Load, and this year's Old Man Load was a little bit more subdued than before. There was still a lot of old Walton guys that came out, but you do have the whole um, Old Man Load was not made such a big deal of um, uh, this year. Um, uh, uh, was not made such a big deal of this year in that again for the COVID thing, and there certainly wasn't an effort to make this as big as prior years, which is good. Um, you want um, the Aggies to have the experience of meeting the old Walton guys and getting to hear those stories and everything. But like so many things in 2020, um, you've you dial it back just a little bit. There's a there's something about the look of the look that somebody has when they got a log on their shoulders, and there's different ways of handling it. We've seen some pretty intense ones. Um, I do uh, I do enjoy looking at the different ways that that carrying a log comes across. And this is what I was after on this one. A little overexposed, so oh well. But this is one of the part of the old man crew. Also, the previous year's brown pot, but squared up to catch this log that's about to be tossed at him. Um, ah, oops. I've uh, I've gotten better at handling the fog on the glasses situation. It still bites me every now and again, but um, gotten better at it. I think I've gotten better at it. Then again, it might not just be so warm and muggy and humid in the mornings. Maybe that's what's happening. Obviously, I've taken a break from Old Man Load and gone out into the woods there. So I had a couple different ideas for um, axes hitting the wedge, and this is a different angle that I wanted to try. I don't think I nailed it with this one. I don't think I got one that turned out the way I wanted it to as far as the actual axe strike goes. But still some good shots nonetheless. And I know I've said it before, but a pelt has really, I've been so impressed with uh, in a pelt's short off-campus history from one day, uh, one person from a pelt coming up and saying, "Hey, uh, I'm from a pelt. We want a crew," and you hear that. It's not an uncommon thing to hear every year. There's somebody from one crew or another that is interested in making their dorm a full-fledged bonfire crew again, and there's that enthusiasm, and and that's outstanding, obviously, but does that carry over into the next year? And so often it doesn't. You don't get a brand new crew every year coming out, but yet every year you get people coming out and saying, "I want to make my dorm into a crew." And a pelt was one that, just another one of many that they had somebody come in and say, I want a pelt to have a crew. I want to make that happen." And um, uh, you kind of give them here's who you need to talk to, and here's how you can make that happen, and if you do things right, here's what it's going to wind up looking like, and 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 you just kind of hope for the best. But again, so often it's that motivation and all of the steps that are necessary to take it to that next step of actually having crew chiefs and training the crew chiefs up, and and recruiting, so you don't just have a crew that's purely just crew chiefs out there. They need to have people to lead in order to do the job right. They have to be able to lead people, and all of those things that have to come together. It's just a huge challenge. And so to have a pelt be one of those crews that just starts with a "can we do this" and turns into a crew of their size doing what they are have been doing now for a couple years. uh, Good recruitment, great motivation, um, just it's just so impressive, and I'm so proud for a pelt to 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 have what they have. So really looking forward to their development over the years. Um, so here's another one of the angles, a different sort of angle that I was going for, and I'm really happy that this one worked out. This was, um, I mean, how many ways can you shoot an axe hitting a tree? Well, it turns out a lot, and so this was. I didn't expect to get as close to what I wanted so quickly, but I was really happy with this one. That kind of from the top, very tight, down into the wedge as opposed to across it and right next to it. So I'm happy with that one. I try to catch axe handles in the woods uh, for what's written on them. Um, these kind of historical markers. I like this one, but I don't like this. This is again OCD. This needed to be in space, not cut off. So hopefully another one of these will do the job. Uh, this one is obviously the axis, more completely visible here, but it doesn't. This posture and this point of the swing doesn't convey the um, kind of the. It's not as impressive as this versus this, and these are just a fraction of a second apart. So unfortunate that I didn't get that. I got the whole axe when it wasn't a very impressive part of the swing, and I cut it off a little bit when it was. So I don't know. I'll go back and revisit. Um, we got shenanigans. Shenanigans in the OC Woods. Here's somebody with their unicorn outfit. At least he was doing work, right? Little goofing off in the woods. All right, OC Chief overseeing that. I liked this. The sort of mist of chips. More of the unicorn. A little bit more intense angle of the unicorn here. Now we're back in the core woods. So, this was great. This was great. I was able to ask. I know I'd mentioned this in one of the earlier weeks that I needed to ask this question. I've always referred to Squadron 16 as the Charlie Browns. I kind of always wondered if that was acceptable to the Charlie Browns, to Squadron 16. I know there are some outfits. I can say this now because they're not current anymore, and they won't find where I live and hunt me down. But it was I-1, I think. Back when all the outfits had specialties, and in the military sense, I-1 was supposedly, as the story goes, the ordnance outfit, and so they had this saying ord, 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 ord. That was their word, and you didn't say that, and nobody was allowed to say that but them, and you would get in serious trouble if you said that, because anybody saying it but them was just not okay. And so I wondered that about Squadron 16, and so I asked the butt pot. And here's Squadron 16, Charlie Browns. See, and you can see it on their pots as well. I asked him, "Hey man, I've been calling y'all Charlie Browns for all these years. Is that bad bull? Is that something that y'all don't like?" And he said that no, they don't mind it at all. That was the whole intent. Um, and this was so fascinating to me. I'm so glad I learned this. But apparently, what happened was, elephant, right, is a what is called a pull-out word in at A&M, where different freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, each class has its own reserved words, and so when you're a freshman, you can't say the words that belong to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Uh, sophomores, juniors, and seniors can say all of your words, like fish, but you can't say their words. So one of the reserved words for the highest the level of reserved words was for the seniors, which was elephant. Seniors are, among other things, elephants, which is where you get elephant walk, where the seniors take one last tour of campus on their way to be, quote, buried, right? So, meaning their time as students is nearing an end, right? So, elephant, point being, elephant is a special word, and you can't say it unless you're a senior. And so, these members of Squadron 16 years ago had this brilliant idea to have a little bit of a pullout, and in Aggie parlance, a pullout is finding a way to say or do something that is not your privilege um, at whatever current level you are. And so these not seniors wanted to pull out and allude to elephant in some way. And so they came up with these t-shirts, these yellow t-shirts with black marker in a zigzag fashion, which was meant obviously to reference Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown, as in, you're not going to believe this, Charlie Brown, as in Peanuts, the Peanuts cartoon, as in peanuts, as in the things that elephants eat. So, by 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 this Charlie Brown reference, they reference peanuts, which is, and so this was a long way around having a pullout of saying elephant. And for a while, everybody on the quad thought, "Oh, hey, that's well, what the hell are they doing?" And then they finally learned that this was a pullout, an elephant pullout, and so they got in a little bit of trouble, but they were allowed to keep, because it was such good bull. They were allowed to keep um, these Charlie Brown things. And I think it was in 2008 the Charlie Brown zigzag everything actually became part of the pots. But up until that point, it was only referenced in these T-shirts. These T-shirts here that the freshmen get to wear are the actual T-shirts that were created way back when. I think it was the 80s. These are the actual T-shirts that were created way back then to create this Charlie Brown identity for Squadron 16. So really cool story. I had no idea after all this time. And then it gets better. So this is C2. And if you'll notice, um, let's see if it's visible. Here's a C2 pot in with Squadron 16. C2 and Squadron 16 have been assigned to work together this year. Now, C2 is their claim to fame is the Flight of the Great Pumpkin, which is an annual tradition on the quad. They are all about the Flight of the Great Pumpkin. And C2 is not allowed, being the masters of the Flight of the Great Pumpkin. Underclassmen in C2, I think anybody, it might, yeah, maybe, yeah, underclassmen, sophomores and freshmen in C2 are not allowed to make any reference at all towards anything to do with pumpkins, including Halloween, which of course naturally would include Charlie Brown because of it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. So again, I had no idea until this weekend. This was so awesome. I'm so glad I got to talk to the Squadron 16 butt pot. C2 is assigned to work with the Charlie Browns, but C2 can't say anything about the Charlie Browns, at least referring to them in any way as the Charlie Browns, because Charlie Brown, Flight of the Great Pumpkin, oh man, God, we're the weirdest damn place on the planet, but could it get any better? That's so awesome. Um, and geez, it's been 20 years, over 20 years since I came to A&M, and I just now learned that. So, outstanding. Good gosh, I completely forgot that I had talked to him about that weekend. So back to work. Here we are, Squadron 6, um, working on a tree. We see the difference from this angle, and I'm shooting from this angle, and because of some fall paths, I was trying to figure out how I could get to them doing this with some different fall paths that were in play with some trees they were cutting down. But I knew from standing here that I wanted to be over here because of the light that was coming off of his handle here. So I knew that I wanted to get back here. I just had to. It took me a minute to figure out how. And we see that light that I was looking for, and that fully lit uh, wedge there. That's pretty close. I think the other one was better. So I said Squadron 6, but there's also BQs involved. The Aggie Band doing work on a tree. Now, when I got here, they were in the process of bringing this wedge down. So you start your front wedge and you work your back wedge then towards the front wedge, and then uh, the tree breaks towards the front wedge and falls that direction. So their back wedge had actually gotten a little bit high, and here's a good shot of that, trying to bring that back wedge down to something close to this level here. Uh, because if you make your back wedge too high, that's where you get a tree that falls on the back wedge, which is about the worst thing that you could ever do in the woods, is make your tree fall on the back wedge. It's having a back wedge that's too much higher than the front wedge that does it. So here you see him bringing that back wedge down, not striking it right in here to get through it, but rather striking it down here to lower that wedge. Went over to some more of the band working over here in this dark little pocket. And we can bring that up just a little bit. I like that one. Um, the band is always very Bonfire motivated. Um, and it's always great to have the band out. We're going to see here soon enough, the band continues to make the outhouse as well. So that's uh, hell. They made the band made the outhouse, in the first Bonfire stack off campus. So all the way back to 2003, the band was already back to making the outhouse again. Now, and I'm sure I'll share this one again closer to the end of the stack, but when the band made their outhouse in 2003, I'm assuming it's because I'm assuming this is the reason, um, but in any event, uh, it is my theory that what had happened was um, they were going off of the plans for a bonfire stack um, last that it was on campus, which would have been 6, 7, 8 stories tall, and the outhouse for something that high up in the air is going to be a much bigger one. I believe that they built the outhouse to those specifications in 2003, and the current bonfire stack is now every log touches the ground. And since 2003, the tallest logs that you're going to use with every log touching the ground is 32 feet. So that hasn't budged not one single inch. So the tallest your stack is going to be is 32 feet. And so the outhouse that they brought was twice as big as it had to be. And it was almost, I mean, hell, it was funny when they put that outhouse up there. So the outhouse is now kind of adapted to the current size. But that first outhouse, that was huge. That was a massive outhouse for the structure. That's a good bull though. We still got it up there. Still put it on top of the stack. Here we are calling a log in the core woods. Doing a wave. I believe we're doing a wave. Maybe we didn't do a wave. Wait, we did. Here we go. Most everybody's facing this way. You see some of these folks facing this way, and then the other half facing this way. They're in the middle of doing a wave. So when you do a wave, everybody one by one turns around. And you stay on the same side of the log, you just switch shoulders and turn your body around. And as you turn around, you say a word, any word you want, just to indicate to the person who needs to turn around next that it's their turn to turn around. So we got one of the C2 pots here. OC, off-campus hogs. And we're back to load side again. Way overexposed that one. It's all right. There's a baser. So we see that's a pretty sizable log. Remember I told you to take a mental picture of that shirt. And there's our Squadron 17 perfectly white shirt. Completely ruined. The baser going down, you see the hands are still out. They're not just throwing a log and backing off. You keep those hands out. Prepare for the log to bounce back if necessary. And in the event, look at all these hands out. You keep them out until the truck tells you to break it. There's a Squadron 17 butt pot calling a log. Another baser. As the log comes down, you'll see this is the load pod's leg right here. He's called the log. He knows where the end of it is, but he's prepared to get himself. And you see, uh, uh, you see the load pot farther down. This is a prior load pot. Again, being old man load. You see him jumping up and over the log, making room for the log, but then get yourself between the log and the participants. Get the leg between the log and the participants as quickly as possible. All right. So, old guys messing around hurried up as fast as they could and grabbed the log and cut in front of, pardon me, cut in front of another log. On the run. And obviously it didn't matter to them that this was a piece of crap log. Um, with the, what is known as a dick here and the curve here, that's a garbage log, but they don't give a damn. And there we go. There's our Mosier chair, Mom. So I ran over there to get that. I was enjoying the shade, and then I saw them coming around the corner. Thought I needed to hurry. Good tosser. And we're getting right on to the near the end of the day here. Just a few more. This is a high port brought here to the junior red pots. High port is any log that can be carried by two people. And so these schmucks are bringing in a high port to the junior red pot. It's carried by two people. It qualifies. And he chucked the crap out of it. Just some good bullet load sight. And that actually does it. That does it for the weekend. There were There were some more from this day, but they were from the pumpkin patch. So, obviously, uh, not bonfire stuff, but more stuff that I love. Bonfire, my kids. That's what the photography is all about. But to this, that's the end of the 10th and the 11th at Bonfire 2020. We are going to look tomorrow and develop tomorrow the photos from the 17th. From the 17th. So we have some photos from this past weekend. Just one day from this past weekend we looked at. The split doubles. I can only imagine what the split doubles are like for all of the participants. I have the luxury of going home when I need to go home. Um, I have the luxury of um, not coming out some days. I think I've missed two, 2 or 3 days this semester, and it was nice to have those breaks. But they're not getting any breaks at all. They're coming out every week. They got to come out. They're doing their job every day they're asked to do it, and I'm tired. And so I can only imagine the position that they're in. But that's the job, and it's motivating to see their level of motivation continue without the luxury of breaks, and doing work that, quite frankly, is actually hard, as opposed to watching them do actually hard work. Um, but in any event, proud of them this year, proud of them every year. But this year has been a special challenge, and they've met it very well. And I'm very impressed and very happy with their work, um, and very proud that Aggies of this caliber are carrying on this work that's so dear to so many. So we'll jump back in tomorrow. On this past weekend, we will get all caught up and hopefully get those photos published, all of them. These that we've just looked at and the ones that we're going to look at tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll get all of those published by Wednesday, so that by Wednesday afternoon, we can have some photos from Center Pole Unload and get those done in time for Center Pole Raising on Friday, and then dress log cut on the weekend, and then stack, full blown stack by next week. So this is that time of year. This is silly season. We're moving fast and building the hell out of Bonfire. So really motivating. Hope you'll join for the rest. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for notifications. Uh, Follow on Twitter at Dion C Gallery, Facebook Dion C Gallery. Your support on Patreon is important and deeply appreciated. So patreon.com/Dion C Gallery. Um, this would not be possible without your support. And of course follow Student Bonfire at Student Bonfire on Twitter and Facebook, and studentbonfire.com. The photos are all available on dion-c, dion-c.me. dion-c.me is the website to look at all the photos from this year and from years going all the way back to 2010, as long as we've been taking these photos. So scope them out, get motivated, pass it back, Aggies, build the hell